On February 9th, 2004, a young woman named Maura Murray vanished without a trace. It was early evening when her car was found crashed along a rural road in Haverhill, New Hampshire. The scene was strange. The airbags deployed, the windshield cracked, but Maura was gone. She had seemingly stepped out of her Saturn sedan and disappeared into the freezing New England night. What happened to her in those brief, unaccounted minutes remains one of America's most enduring mysteries. To understand the enigma, we need to step back and look at Maura's life before the night of her disappearance. Maura was 21 years old, a nursing student at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. Described by friends and family as bright, athletic, and caring, she was also carrying a weight that few knew about. The weeks before her disappearance were filled with subtle cracks in her otherwise ordinary life. An accident at her part-time job, academic struggles, and what some described as a growing sense of restlessness. On the morning of February 9th, Maura emailed her professors explaining she'd be gone for a week due to a family emergency. She packed her car with clothes, textbooks, and personal items. But, strangely, she told no one exactly where she was going. By late afternoon, she was heading north, driving out of Massachusetts and into the wooded highways of New Hampshire. What was she looking for? Escape? Solitude? Or was she heading towards someone? Surveillance later confirmed she had withdrawn cash from an ATM, bought alcohol at a nearby liquor store, and then she vanished into the snowy backroads of Haverhill. And then, at around 7:30 p.m., her Saturn slid off the road, crashing into a snowbank. Several locals saw the car. One neighbor even stopped to ask if she needed help. Maura declined, saying she had already called for assistance. But phone records revealed she never made that call. Minutes later, when police arrived, she was gone. No footprints leading into the woods. No signs of struggle. No trace. Just an abandoned car, headlights casting long shadows into the night. When police arrived at the scene around 7:45 p.m., they found Maura's car pressed into a snowbank, its front end dented, the airbags deployed. Inside the vehicle were scattered belongings, a box of wine, empty beer bottles, some clothing, and a few school items. The driver's seat was pushed back, some say too far back for someone of Maura's petite size. But what was missing was more important than what was found. Maura herself was gone. There were no footprints leading away from the car into the woods, no drag marks, no blood in the snow. It was as if the night had swallowed her whole. Locals who lived near the crash gave statements. One neighbor said she saw a young woman who matched Maura's description standing beside the car, appearing shaken but not injured. Another claimed Maura insisted she had already called AAA, though records showed she hadn't used her cell phone at all in that moment. And then, just minutes later, nothing. By the time help officially arrived, Maura was gone. Police began a basic sweep of the area, flashlights cutting across snowy ditches, officers calling her name into the dark woods. But the search quickly grew into something larger. Over the next 36 hours, canine dogs were brought in, helicopters scanned the tree line, and local volunteers combed through the nearby backroads and fields. The dogs caught a scent trail that led just a short distance, and then stopped abruptly in the middle of the road, as if Maura had stepped into another vehicle. But whose vehicle? A friend? A stranger? Or someone Maura was meeting that night?
As the days turned into weeks, the mystery deepened. No fresh leads, no confirmed sightings, no activity on her bank cards, credit cards, or cell phone. It was as though Maura had been erased from the landscape. Her family was left with nothing but questions. Why had she told professors about a family emergency that didn't exist? Why did she withdraw cash and stock her car with alcohol? And most pressing of all, why Havehill? Maura had no known connection to the town, no relatives, no friends nearby. It wasn't on her way to anyone she knew. The road she crashed on wasn't even a main highway. It was a winding, rural stretch surrounded by thick woods and shadows. The case began to split into two competing theories. One, Maura walked away from the accident, disoriented, perhaps under the influence, and succumbed to the freezing temperatures. A tragic but natural explanation. The other, someone encountered her on that lonely road, either by chance or by prior arrangement. Someone who offered a ride, or something darker. But the deeper investigators dug, the stranger the details became. Maura had searched online just days before about renting cabins in Vermont and about alcohol's effects on pregnancy. She had also spoken with her father the night before she vanished, after attending a dorm party where her car was involved in a minor crash. Layer by layer, a picture was forming, but it didn't make sense. Was she running from something? Running to someone? Or had she simply planned to disappear? For her family, friends, and a growing number of online sleuths, every detail became a clue, every inconsistency a possible key. But in the cold woods of New Hampshire, none of that mattered, because the one person who could answer these questions, Maura, was still missing.
As weeks turned into months, the case of Maura Murray took on a life of its own. In the absence of hard evidence, theories began to multiply. Some whispered about foul play, a predator lurking along Route 112 who saw an opportunity. Others suggested Maura had planned her disappearance, a calculated escape from the pressures of her life. And then there were the stranger ideas. Accidents covered up, conspiracies involving locals, even whispers of Maura assuming a new identity far from New Hampshire. But while speculation churned, her family was left to navigate the unbearable weight of not knowing. Her father, Fred Murray, became a tireless advocate, pressing police for answers, pushing search teams further, speaking to media whenever he could. He refused to believe Maura had simply wandered into the woods to die. To him, this was a crime. To him, someone had taken his daughter. Police remained cautious. Official statements leaned toward the theory that Maura had walked away voluntarily, perhaps under distress. Without evidence of foul play, the case remained categorized as a missing persons investigation, not a criminal one. But that uncertainty only fanned the flames of public fascination. Online forums sprang up, filled with amateur detectives analyzing timelines, debating witness accounts, and even traveling to the crash site to conduct their own searches. Every inconsistency, every gap in the timeline was dissected and reassembled into new theories. For some, it became more than curiosity. It became obsession. And yet, at the core of all this noise remained one simple fact. Maura was gone. No footprints, no confirmed sightings, no trace. The forest held its secrets, the road remained empty, and every unanswered question seemed to pull her story deeper into the realm of unsolved mysteries. Was she picked up by a stranger? Did she run into the woods and vanish in the snow? Or did she choose to leave everything behind, beginning a new life beyond the edge of familiarity?
Theories can provide comfort, a way of believing we're inching closer to truth. But they can also bury the truth under layers of speculation. And as the years passed, the line between fact and theory became harder and harder to distinguish. For her family, hope was caught between these competing stories. Some days, belief that Maura was alive, somewhere, waiting to be found. Other days, the crushing weight of imagining she had met a darker fate on that cold, empty road. But no matter the theory, one thing remained constant: silence.
Time is the greatest enemy of missing persons cases. With each passing year, memories fade, evidence decays, and hope begins to fracture. But Maura Murray's case has proven different. More than a decade after her disappearance, it remains alive, not just in the hearts of her family, but in the minds of strangers around the world. Over the years, investigators have returned to the White Mountains. Search teams combed the dense forests, draining ponds, bringing in cadaver dogs and aerial scans. Each time, the searches ended in frustration. No trace of Maura. New leads surfaced occasionally. Alleged sightings, possible connections, bones discovered in nearby towns. Each one raised hope. Each one dissolved into disappointment. Meanwhile, Maura's family continued their fight. Her father, Fred, made regular trips to New Hampshire, posting flyers, talking to locals, refusing to let her memory be swallowed by time. Her siblings, too, stepped forward, joining online discussions, speaking in interviews, trying to humanize their sister beyond the mystery. For them, Maura was not a riddle to be solved. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend. And yet, the world insisted on viewing her as something more, a puzzle that demanded solving. The internet only amplified that effect. Podcasts, blogs, YouTube channels, even entire books, all dedicated to Maura's disappearance. Some treated the case with sensitivity. Others sensationalized it, twisting fragments of truth into gripping narratives. For many, the fascination was less about Maura herself and more about the void her case represents, a story without an ending. A young woman vanishes, leaving behind a trail of questions but no answers. And in that silence, people began to project their own fears, their own theories, their own obsession with what lies just beyond explanation. But through the noise, one chilling fact remains unchanged. Maura's last known moments ended on a quiet, snowy road. A crash, a phone call, and then nothing. No verified sighting has ever surfaced since that night in February 2004. It's as though the highway itself swallowed her whole. And so, her story continues to echo. In courtrooms, in newsrooms, in living rooms, and across digital spaces where strangers search for closure they'll never truly feel. Because in the end, no amount of speculation can replace the truth, and the truth, in Maura Murray's case, has remained agonizingly out of reach. The road where Maura Murray's Saturn came to rest has not changed much in 2 decades. The trees still lean inward, casting shadows over the highway. The same curve still bends sharply, quietly dangerous in the winter months. And every so often, someone new stops there, a stranger, a local, a follower of the case. They stand where the taillights once glowed, where the phone calls ended, where a young woman's trail simply disappeared. What happened after that crash? Did Maura accept a ride from a stranger? Did she attempt to walk deeper into the woods for shelter? Did the White Mountains hide her in a place where searchers have never looked, or can never look? The questions pile up like snowdrifts on the roadside, heavy, silent, unmoving. And yet, they remain questions.
There are those who believe the answer is out there, buried beneath time, memory, and the stubborn silence of the wilderness. There are those who believe Maura left behind more than just her car, that she left behind a message, a warning, a story that still waits to be told. And then there are those who whisper a darker possibility, that perhaps Maura's disappearance was not a puzzle at all, but an erasure, a moment in time so final, so complete, that only absence remains. For her family, hope still flickers. It must. For the world watching, fascination still grows. It always will. And for the stretch of road in Haverhill, New Hampshire, the mystery still lingers, an invisible weight pressed into the snow, into the trees, into the silence of a February night that refuses to give up its secrets. Maura Murray has been missing since February 9th, 2004. She was 21 years old. Her story remains unsolved. Thank you for joining us on this episode. If this story moved you, please consider subscribing, sharing, and leaving your thoughts below. Every voice helps keep these stories alive. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe on the roads we travel.